It says we are live. Hello, coming to you from LinkedIn. Mark Graban here. We are live on LinkedIn around the world. We're joined today by Paul Critchley. Paul, how you doing?
I'm all right, Mark. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you, Paul, for accepting my offer to do a kind of impromptu experiment. For those who are watching, Paul and I were planning on recording an episode of my Lean Blog interviews podcast today. And then I had the brainstorm of, an hour and a half ago. Well, hey, Paul, do you want to do it as a live stream and see what happens? We're also recording it for the podcast.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, sure. I've never done one, but right. It's like lean. The best time, right? The best time to start is now. So let's just try and see how it goes.
Yeah. So we're going to see what happens if anybody we'll see how the LinkedIn algorithm either helps us or not about an impromptu live stream. See if people show up. If you're watching live, we would love to hear questions that you have. I'm going to hit mute because I went over to the LinkedIn screen. But I've got some questions that I can ask Paul. And again, if nobody shows up, that's okay because we're recording and it'll be out in podcast land. So, okay, I'm going to call this kind of the official start of the podcast. Paul has been a guest many times before. Usually I introduce my guests, but I'm going to ask Paul this time. We're going to mix it up. If you could introduce yourself before we talk about your upcoming event.
Sure.
Tell us about yourself and your career and your background.
Sure. So Paul Critchley, currently live just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, but I'm a born and raised Mainer, which I have to say, or I lose my Mainer card. And I'm if people who know me, I bring it up all the time. I drive my kids crazy about Maine trivia. I'm a very proud Mainer, so I got to sneak that one in there. But the dime tour is I'm a degreed mechanical engineer. I spent my whole life in operations as an ME manager, an ops manager. I worked in automotive, which is where I kind of cut my teeth. The company I worked for won some work with Toyota way back in the late 90s. So that's really where I got my feet wet with lean. And I've sort of been practicing it ever since. I always tell folks the sexiest thing I've worked on was I worked at Pratt Whitney in East Hartford for about 5 years. And my team and I made the nozzle, which is the rear end of a jet engine. Mm-hmm. For the F-22 Raptor, which is the F-119 engine. And then we made the first LRIP, which is low rate of initial production, F-135 engines that go in the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. So that's my go-to at barbecues and parties and stuff. So I opened New England Lean 12 years ago. And that's what we do now is we help our target audience are small to medium-sized manufacturers and just help them with lean, continuous improvement, and trying to do what they do better, faster, more efficiently.
Yeah. And you used one of my favorite phrases. So I'm going to hold up this book, Practicing Lean, because I think we share a belief that none of us are experts and know it all, but you continue learning in different ways, learning from others, learning through your own practice, through your own experiments. If I ever do a second edition of this, Paul, maybe we can get your early reflections and your practicing lean stories.
I absolutely would. And I'm mad at myself when you put that first one together that I didn't. I thought of it because I saw your posts about it. Yeah. And I thought, I'm like, I kind of like to do that. And I'm like, who am I? I'm like, but so next time for sure.
Okay. We'll get you shifted from podcaster to author. I hate, it makes me feel sad to see former podcaster. You still have the gear. You could podcast again.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe.
I haven't recorded an episode in it's got to be 2 years now. Time just flies, but it was my COVID project because you probably and everybody else, right? March, April, May, June, nobody weren't really doing anything. And I always liked, it was, again, a learning experience for me. I'd never done, I'd been a guest on a few and I wanted to give it a shot. So I did. And you're right. Actually, I had a conference call this morning with a client and I met somebody new because somebody had left and this person took over that position. And as soon as I jumped on, they're like, wow, you have quite the setup there. You almost look like a podcaster. And I'm like, well, actually, it's kind of where all this stuff came from. And I just held on to it because it comes in handy, for stuff like this or Teams calls or whatever.
Yeah. So we talk about tackling new projects and endeavors. You and I have collaborated on a workshop that you helped me host up, and we did that in Massachusetts, right?
Yep.
It was a measures of success workshop some years ago, pre-COVID, a couple years before, probably 2018, 2019.
Yep.
When that book was coming out. But you've taken on kind of a bigger endeavor when it comes to in-person events. Tell us about your upcoming conference.
So yeah, that's something I'm really, really excited about. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. So a little bit of background is we don't, up in the Northeast region, there used to be a fair number of conferences for, lean and leadership specific. And a couple of them just aren't around anymore. So I kind of felt like, if there ever was a right time, air quotes, right time, I guess it's now. So I figured, we are. So I've dubbed it the New England Lean Summit. I've curated my own hashtag, which I don't know if I have any follower. I haven't looked. But that's kind of the idea. So it's a 2-day event. It's going to be here in Connecticut, just south of Hartford. We wanted to keep it pretty centralized because between Hartford and Springfield, Massachusetts, it's the I-91 corridor, and it's affectionately referred to as Aerospace Alley. And there's some groups that we're a part of or that we're partnered with that kind of work with those types of companies, whether they're tier 1 or 2 or what have you. So I didn't want to get too far geographically away from that, but I still wanted it to be close enough where, an hour or so, people could get to it relatively easily. So it's a 2-day event. It's September 12th and 13th of this year. And it's in Cromwell, and it's all the information's on our website, and I can shoot you a link, Mark, so you can link to it later.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes.
All right. Thank you. But yeah, it's a 2-day event. Day 1, Thursday is really workshop focused. So we have a number of 2 and 4 hour workshops. There's a whole bunch of different ones. A lot of, I know you hate it when people use this term this way, but I'm going to do it. I'm humbled by the fact that I had so many people. I had put the call out for presenters, and I had a lot of people say yes. And I know that's not the right word. I'm just honored, I guess, is probably the better term.
That's the thing I debate or discuss. Is it correct to say I'm honored? There's people who push back and say I'm not understanding what it means when someone says they're humbled when something good happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
No, and I totally get it. But it really was. It just I can't say it enough. It really meant a lot to me. And if you look at the site, we have Elizabeth Swan coming, Deandra Wardell, which I know, right? You know these folks. Anne Fruin. Yep. We got a couple of folks from the TWI Institute, right? Just to name just a few. And these are a lot of people that I've known for a long time, and I was just really touched that they all said yes. Anyway, so logistically, Thursday, like I said, is workshops, 2 and 4 hours. And then we're having Lean Happy Hour, which was yet another COVID project that I took on way back when. I did a Lean Happy Hour just on Zoom, because Zoom was
I was part of some of those.
Yes, I remember you came. So I just called it that. And I said, listen, we're not doing anything. How about Friday, 5:00? We hang out on Zoom for an hour and have a beer or a drink if you want, but let's do this virtually. And I got to know so many people I never would have met otherwise. And I am very proud to say that is still going today. I don't run it anymore. I had to take a step back about the same time that I had to take a step back from doing the podcast, just because business opened back up and we started to get busy. But thankfully, folks that were in the Lean Happy Hour group kept it going. And actually, some of those folks are coming to the summit also. So I get to finally meet them IRL in real life. So that'll be Thursday night. And then Friday is sessions, which are like a 1-hour thing. And again, just a lot of, we have a lot of great speakers, authors, folks that have written a boatload of books, that keynote, all kinds of fun stuff. So, and so far the reception has been going pretty well. We're doing, I'd say, pretty good with registrations. So all in all, I think, especially for year one, I'm very optimistic. I think that there's a market for it and an appetite for it, and I'm really excited. I'm we're working hard here in the background to make sure that things go smoothly. We talk to the hotel like once a week, the conference center where we're having it, just to make sure logistically things are all square. So I'm excited about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be an annual thing that we do every year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope it keeps going along well, and I'll be curious to hear from you afterwards. I'm sorry that I can't make it up there. The timing just wasn't right for me, but hopefully some other year in the future if it becomes an annual thing. So I would look forward to that. So you've got New England Lean Consulting. You've got the New England Lean Summit. And forgive me for pointing out, if you called it the New England Lean Conference, it would still be NELC.
I know. I couldn't do that because that name's sort of kind of already taken.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Good reason. But then there's another NELC, if I have this right, the consortium.
Right. The collaborative,
collaborative.
Yes.
Okay. When we're words that, my mistake.
No, it's okay.
Collaborative.
I would have called it the consortium, but the New England Lean Consortium is actually a name that somebody else owns. There used to be a New England Lean Consortium. That person closed up shop many, many years ago, but it's still a registered name, so I couldn't use it. So I just called it the collaborative. So the initials, like you said, are still the same.
Yeah. So, well, tell us about the collaborative.
Yep. So the collaborative is, again, something that I've been noodling around for many years, and I kicked that off, a year and a half ago, I guess now, maybe. But that's the whole goal. So we do, it's really meant to, it's a member organization. So you pay a pretty small annual fee to be part of it. And that's just it. It's meant to build the community here in specifically New England, just on people that want to learn more about lean, get to know other lean folks. We have meetups. So far we've done book clubs, and yours was the first. So we did The Mistakes That Make Us, right? So that was the first book club book that we did. And we just finished a couple of weeks ago, Karen Martin's Clarity First. And I'm very proud to say that you both, came. So we meet weekly, we read a couple chapters, we get together, we kind of talk about it. And then the last meeting of each book club, we always invite the authors to come. So we're batting 1,000. We're 2 for 2. We're taking a little lull here in the summertime, but we'll pick that back up in the fall. We've done a tour of a client, a member site. And that's kind of the other thing is our membership, that they're encouraged as part of the deal. When you sign up is you say, hey, we're willing to have folks come in and just see what we do. Good. And it's an open, I'll say an open concept of, you can, people hire us and we'll come in and we'll say, hey, well, this other client, they do this, or have you thought about that? But we can't always say those things. So we have an NDA with practically every client we have. So we have to be pretty generic. But for the collaborative, it's a way to go into a place and actually see and touch and smell, feel what it feels like. Talk to the people who are doing, operators and frontline associates and salespeople. Talk to the people who actually are doing these things and really dig in so you can kind of learn. And, LinkedIn is great. Social media is pretty good. I have a love-hate relationship a little bit with it, right? But it's so much better to be able to go to a place and actually, like I said, see it, touch it. It's the tactile piece of it. So that's kind of the idea. We have a members only area that we have a bunch of templates and videos and stuff like that you can, just tap into. It's curated, a lot of the stuff, not our stuff, but a lot, you go to YouTube or TikTok, right? And you can get some stuff from there, but there's just so much out there. It takes you a while just to sift through some of that. So our members only area is kind of meant to cut all that stuff away and be like, this is what we do at New England Lean Consulting. So here are the templates and stuff that we use. And right. So you have open access to that kind of stuff. So,
and neither the summit nor the collaborative are industry focused. You mentioned aerospace corridor, but you've got people participating from all sorts of industries, correct?
That is correct. Yep. In the collaborative, we have, it's mostly manufacturing, but we have somebody in banking, right? As a member. And then certainly the summit, same. yes, we're Aerospace Alley, or that's, right. So there is going to be probably a good contingent of manufacturers, but I'm just running down in my head. We have some folks from hospitals that have already signed up, not for profits.
Good.
I think
Mhm.
somebody from, I want to say, universities, right? A couple of
Mhm.
folks from a university. So it's real. It's just that it's apostolic, or not apostolic, but agnostic, as
Yes.
far as what industry, right? These are all just uh, the lean tools, methods, and concepts, right? That,
Yeah.
we have a lot of hands-on things like Bob Rush, that I know and you've had on your podcast
Mhm.
before. He's coming up, which I can't wait to meet him. He and I have, I'll say,
Yeah.
known each other virtually for a long time, but I forget what his blog was called when he first started. Was it like Old Lean Guy or something?
Thoughts from an old lean guy or
Yeah,
something. I mean, I think he posted on LinkedIn. He wrote a chapter for practicing lean. I get his confused with our friend Bruce Hamilton, old lean dude,
right. As do I.
but I think Bob Rush's. I think it was like thoughts from an old lean
Yeah.
guy.
Yep. But I just remember when that first popped up, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
it touched me. I was like, yeah, wow. Like, he has a really fun and unique perspective. And
Mhm.
I emailed him. I'm like, hey, I read your blog. I love your blog. And since
Yeah.
then we've been with like virtual buddies, and he's coming up and
Yeah.
he's teaching a workshop and a
Oh, good.
session. So I can't wait, right, to hang out with Bob and share some laughs. So that's going to be good. So really, for the summit, like I said, it's learning, but it definitely has a lot of what I'll call Paul Critchley personality, right? Because I want
Hmm.
it to be fun. Like, I've
Yeah.
got some fun things planned, and not just, when I say fun things, not just like there's going to be lunchtime activities and stuff like that, but there's going to be things at a conference that you've probably never seen at a conference before. So it's going to be a little, I don't want to say party-ish, because it's not going to be party. Like, it's going to be serious about learning, right, and that stuff. But at
Sure.
the same time, it's going to be
Oh.
fun, because I think that's a big part of respect for people, and that's the part
Hmm.
that I really want to emphasize. So when people leave, the summit, they'll be like, not only did I just have a blast, I met a lot of new people, I networked
Hmm.
with a bunch of people I never would have met before, and I learned a ton, and it was about not even half the cost it would have been for pretty much every other conference that you can think of. So
Yeah.
for me, that's the home run that I'm looking to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we learn more, we learn better when we're having fun. Pascal Dennis, who I've known a long time, formerly of Toyota in Ontario, Canada, really always emphasized that of um, trying. You think of Toyota as being a very serious company with very serious purpose, but I think Pascal learned some great lessons there about having fun, doing things. He always called it, with a light touch. Of trying to keep things, even though we're doing serious work with a serious mission. You've got to have your moments where you're having fun because you're going to be more creative. The ideas are going to flow. You can have fun celebrating
Right.
when things go well. You can have fun celebrating when you've discovered a new problem to tackle. So I think that's good to hear. You're gonna have fun. Now I'll tell you one thing I've only seen once and I've never seen again at a conference. It was in the Netherlands. They had a DJ. They had like a DJ spinning tunes out in the live
That,
areas. Am I spoiling some sort of
no,
surprise?
well, no, it's okay.
Your reaction?
That's one of them. We're gonna have a DJ there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
one of the things. That's one of the things.
Uh,
So that
yeah.
it's same thing. Like, and I haven't quite figured out, like, because again, I don't feel like getting sued because using um what's the word I'm looking for, copyrighted music or whatever. But
Oh,
I gotta figure that part out. But I've got a few calls
well,
out and stuff like that.
yeah. Well, I mean, a DJ, they've got to have ways of handling the music licensing, and
Right.
that's probably part of their fee
Yeah.
if they're a professional DJ.
Exactly, because again, the place where we're having it, they do lots of weddings and that kind of stuff. And all right, we've all been to a wedding. Like, they play the music that is, so
Yeah.
right. So
Well,
that's one of them. But that's what I mean
I,
when I say it's going to be just a fun atmosphere. And to your point,
yeah.
and I haven't done any research on this, so I'm going to speak out of turn a little bit, in which I normally would never do. But I'll just say I feel like, and I know for me, if I'm happy and in a good mood, I'm
Mhm.
more relaxed and, dare I say, more psychologically safe, and therefore you let your guard down a little bit, and you might just absorb something that maybe you might not have before. And that's really what I'm going for. Because,
Mhm.
you and I, I'm sure, and,
Well,
and anybody watching or listening has been to a conference before. And then when you leave, you're like, wow, yeah, that was pretty good. I learned a lot, but it's all, the format is just old and a little tired. It's
or
like,
it can be stuffy.
yeah, continental breakfast, and then you sit, and then you sit at a big round table with 8 other people that you don't know. Like, hi, my name is Paul. What's your name? Oh, hey, I'm Mark. Where do you work, Mark? Oh, I do that. Oh, that's not
How
how
was
things
your
work.
trip in? Where are you from? Yeah.
And it's like, which is fine. That's all fine. But I want ours to be a little bit different, so it's not
Mhm.
like every other lean conference that everybody's ever been to.
Yeah. The conference with the DJ, it wasn't like a wedding DJ like playing tunes. It was more of like a dance club
Mm.
DJ of like thumping, pulsing music out in the break
Oh,
area. Like, so we're trying to talk, and then there's language or accent challenges, and then there's the loud music challenges. But it was something. But then the other thing that was fun with that event, I mean, none of these ideas are trademarked. Um, I was there as a speaker, and they had opportunities for people to have one-on-one conversation with some of the speakers. I forget if it was a drawing or what it was. With the venue of where they had those conversations, they rented a stretch limo, and
wow.
we were riding around in the back of a stretch limo for the 20 minutes or whatever it was, which doesn't seem very green or environmentally friendly
Right.
for being in Europe. But I mean, like, oh, okay,
That's like,
sure,
yeah,
we'll get in this limo.
right.
All right.
What's the Seinfeld, right? You're driving around in cars with comedians or coffee
Comedians
and
in
comedian or
cars with
whatever it is.
coffee.
You could be, you know,
Yeah.
we're not, I'll tell you, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
But we are probably going to do, I haven't reached out to all the speakers yet, but I do want to have opportunities that people can just hang out with some of the speakers, because
Yeah.
right, that's one of the things. It's like, yeah, well, I can take a workshop or a session, and with, say, like Deandra, right? So she has a pretty big link, social media following. But I want to give folks opportunities just to just talk. We're just people, right? So let's just chat and say, hey, I read this article that you wrote back in Industry Week, whatever, 5 years ago. I was curious, what made you think of that? Or why, just stuff
Mhm.
like that. I want to have those types of opportunities, so we've
Yeah.
purposely built in time into the schedule to
Mhm.
allow for those things to happen. Because one of my other personal pet peeves with conferences is it's like down to the minute. So you have like 5 minutes. It's like high school, right? You have five
Yeah.
minutes in between classes. And then, so you're,
The bell.
yeah, exactly. And then, all right, maybe you can visit vendors. Like, we're going to have vendors at ours as well, right? Maybe you can visit the vendors at lunchtime, but the vendors, they're trying to eat their lunch too. And there just never was a good time. So we purposely built in time so people can do stuff like that. If you want to go over, check your email, make sure everything's fine. Okay, you can do that. But you have a good chunk of time where, right, you can just kind of hang out and just meet people and, not
Yeah.
feel rushed. Because I always feel like sometimes with conferences, they're trying to do way too many things all at the same
Right.
time. And it was always difficult. I've left conferences before and be like, yeah, I really wish I'd had more time because I really wanted to see these few vendors because they have a pretty cool piece of software or something that I think could help a client. And I just didn't make it. So you grab a business card and call them later. And it's like, well, I would have
Yeah.
just rather just done it now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll be maybe we'll follow up. Well, either individually one on one, or we'll do a podcast and talk about the evaluation of the different experiments.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
that's exciting to hear. So I look forward to hearing about it afterwards. So again, remind people, and again, there'll be links in the show notes. Remind people the dates and location for the summit.
Yep, it's at the Marriott in Cromwell, Connecticut, although they call it the Hartford Marriott. September 12th and 13th, 2024. It's a 2-day event, workshops, lean happy hour Thursday night, and sessions and the like on Friday.
All right. Well, part of our experiment here with doing the impromptu The algorithms did not draw a big crowd. So there's a lesson learned, right? When I do live streams, I've normally announced them in advance and invited people and promoted it more. So maybe that is indeed a good practice. But I did have some questions. I think we'll do one question here.
Okay.
Greg Jacobson and I from Kinexus do Ask Us Anything series occasionally. We do podcast webinar type format. People submit questions, and we've got kind of a collection of questions here. So I'm going to throw one of them at you because I think you're well positioned to answer this question with a degree of difficulty. You don't know what question is coming, but I know you can speak to this. So we had somebody who had asked, how can we start implementing lean practices in a small company with limited resources?
That's a great question. A lot of times, well, it comes down to time, and when I do training, we have a lean white belt or lean foundations or 101, whatever you want to call it. That's usually where I start. I use that old Far Side cartoon that we probably all seen, where the two cavemen are dragging the cart full of rocks with square wheels, and you got the other cavemen sitting behind him with the two round ones, and the caption is "No thanks, we're too busy." Right?
Yeah.
That's honestly, and I've worked before I started New England Lean. I worked at a bunch of smallish companies, and that's just it. If you're doing 5 different jobs, right? So it's all right. So yeah, give me lean and continuous improvement. Just give me a 6th, right? Like I have all the time in the world. My advice is always just pick something and just work on that one thing. And that one thing doesn't have to be this big ginormous, right? Because this big ginormous thing, I feel like a lot of times, especially if folks are talking with us, they're like, all right, well, we've always hated this, or our whatever costs are always too high, or on-time delivery can't break 90%, or whatever it is. And we really need to attack that. And it's like, okay, we can, but what's one thing that bugs you, right? What's one thing that we can fix today? And I always, my catchphrase is, I love duct tape and PVC pipe. So just so the whole idea is just try it. As long as, you got to do a risk review, even if it's informal, as long as nobody's going to get hurt, you're not going to hurt, you're not going to put anybody in jeopardy or a job or a customer or anything like that. Just do it, try it out and see how it goes. And if it's a 5-minute experiment, great. And you don't have to save days of time or thousands of dollars. It could just be something that makes your piece of the whole system just maybe that much better. So do that. And then tomorrow, do that again. And then, right, a bit of it's to, like with me, one analogy I use a lot is going to the gym. It's hard. Every time I go to the gym, I don't like it. I have to talk myself into it pretty much every time I go. Every time I go, when I'm done, I always feel good that I did it. And it's funny because in my brain, I can't seem to remember that tomorrow when I'm going to have to go again. I have to go through the whole process again. However, it gets really easy if I talk myself out of going to the gym. That next day, I'm like, I'm pretty tired. I worked hard this week. I deserve, a treat. My treat is I'm going to lay on the couch and watch TikToks for the hour that I normally would have, right, gone and done that. And then it's like a slippery slope. So I kind of put it like that. So continuous improvement is just keep going. Don't lose your momentum, even if it's little tiny bits. That's okay. Don't try to bite off, some big ginormous project, because that's a surefire way that it's probably not going to work. And you're going to remember that the next time, and it's going to be that much harder to kind of get started again.
I muted myself. My mistake. When I think of companies, different sizes, there's the analogy of different ships. Small companies like a small ship. It's like a little boat that's easy to turn, quicker to accelerate as opposed to a big company. It might be, big old bureaucratic battleship. I could see reasons why people might say it's too hard to do it because we're too big. And then, for different reasons, then people might say it's too hard to really utilize lean because we're small. Some of the best lean companies I've seen are smaller companies because they have a president, CEO, owner who is fully leading and engaged in the effort as opposed to delegating it or outsourcing it or supporting it, which to me, that's a phrase that seems like a kiss of death. If you're like a leader says, well, I support lean. No, you need to lead it.
Right.
That's true of big companies as well. But, I think there's this fallacy of like, well, I don't have a lot of resources. And well, where did Toyota get started? They didn't have a lot of resources. That was their reason and their need for smaller batch sizes and being more nimble and not relying on inventory. And so, I think, if a company can learn, if they're really small, they may need to learn on their own through the different resources you mentioned, or if they're big enough to reach out to one person for help, like Paul Critchley in New England Lean Consulting, and I know you have others working with them, but let's say they can just bring you in to help. They don't need to bring in a giant mega firm that's going to bring in a big, giant, expensive team. So I think you maybe kind of fit the countermeasure to the situation, right?
And that's just it. I've worked at giant companies, I've worked at really small companies, and it's similar issues and challenges, just on different scales and for different reasons. Like you said, giant companies have a lot of bureaucracy, and right, it can be hard to, turn the Titanic sometimes. So, but at the same time, you're working at a small company. I'm unclogging toilets on top of having a customer, call for this project in an hour and stuff like that, which is a real thing that happens. So, right. And so you kind of, to your point, you have to match your countermeasure, your solution, your proposed solution to size and shape of whatever the issue and challenge is, for sure.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, Paul, thank you for coming on and sharing your countermeasures, your experiments, the New England Lean Summit, and for sharing a little bit about the collaborative. I hope people will check that out, and I hope the event goes really well. So thank you for participating in the experiment. We did have a couple people comment. Bob Rush is here.
Hey.
Maybe his ears were burning,
I guess
because
so.
we were saying good things about you, Bob. Thank you for being here. As he commented, Mark muting himself is a mistake we've all made. Yep. Zoom calls or even on the live stream here. My pal, Tom Ehrenfeld, editor of my book, The Mistakes That Make Us, showed up and being a fan of the movie. A fan isn't even a strong enough word. We're both obsessed with the movie This Is Spinal Tap. So when I talked about like, oh, nobody showed up for our impromptu live stream, Tom quotes the movie and says, well, the crowd is just more selective.
There you go.
It's not that we're less popular. Our audience is now just more selective.
Right.
But
that and the fact that we only promoted it for an hour. Right. So
not even. So lesson learned. But I did not forget to hit record. So I know people are going to be able to hear it in the podcast or watch it on YouTube. So Paul, thanks. Thanks for coming on here today. Always good to see you.
You too. Thanks again, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Thanks to both of you for tuning in live.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Bob.